Welcome, everybody. So happy to see everybody here today. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have a couple of guests today. We have a guest, Jeff Stebbins, and he is on our Zoom. And he is from Edward Jones and is a prospective member. So everybody say hi to Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Jeanette, would you like to introduce your guest?
My guest today is a retired registered nurse, Jolene Klausman. Also, the wife of our.
Thank you, Jeanette. I just have a couple of announcements. The Rotary Cut money for this month will go to the Kansas Book Festival to support Meadows Elementary students to be able to participate in the book festival. And as a fellow librarian, you know, kids need every single opportunity to be part of a book-rich environment, so please give generously. Our community services team continues to plan for our last project, which will probably happen closer to Steve's when I turn it over to Steve, but where we are in the process of putting together our plan. And I mentioned it in the newsletter. This is an opportunity for us to also work with Kohl's, who will help us. They're interested in doing community service as well. So we will be able to leverage our dollars a little bit further to be able to provide this necessary apparel and resources for some local Topeka public schools, elementary schools specifically, but Topeka public schools. And then the other one we're going to be doing is what I'm calling a Dress for Success drive, where we're going to be working with Highland Park and Topeka High to be able to help fill their Dress for Success closet, because so many students who are going to look for their first opportunity for a more professional job or even interviews for college, for scholarships, really just need a little boost and help with making sure that they are dressed appropriately. And so we will have some of our dollars go to that, but I will plant the seed with you now. We're going to be asking you if you have gently used but in really good fare, if you would like to donate any of your business attire so it can find a nice home, then we will be asking you to help clean your closets. So if you're like me, that's a benefit. You get to gain some space in your closet, but you're also ensuring that those items are going to a nice home and helping to set up that next generation of learners and job seekers. We are still in our membership recruitment phase. So if you have somebody that you think would just be a perfect fit for Rotary and for our club specifically, please know that we are still interested in being able to recruit. We are pretty stable in our numbers, and that was not one of the points that we had to get our presidential citation, because we have our 15 and we only need 13, but it doesn't hurt to continue to grow our club. So please reach out to your colleagues, reach out to new members that are coming to Topeka, and really talk up Rotary, because we are emerging from this pandemic and we are stronger than ever. And I'm really excited about the fact that we are truly growing as a club and getting out there and connecting with our community once again. I'm getting y'all set up, Steve. Please notice we have our banner, and we were really pleased to be able to purchase the banner. And so this would be a great way, especially for new members who don't know the 4-way test. You can take a look at the banner. We did buy one that was portable. So if we need to move anywhere else, like we had to do Camp Cowabunga, we can take our four-way test with us. So thank you, Steve, for getting this lined up, and then everybody will have a good idea what the four-way test is. So I'm going to turn this over to Vince to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce today someone that's been one of my best friends for many years. And what's really cool is he brought his wife with him, who's also one of my best friends. So I got two of them here today. Jim Klausman, as many of you know, is the president and CEO of Midwest Health. And they are a company that provides quality senior living communities. Last time I counted, there were 65 of them in 5 states, and I'm sure that's changed because it's changing almost daily with Jim. He is a very diverse in his businesses. He owns restaurants. You probably know he owns the Blue Moose, Spin Pizza, PT's Coffee, among several. He is now into golf courses, which I think he enjoys because he's a golfer. A lot of fun. He has a canning facility in Manhattan. He's a major investor in downtown Topeka. And he also owns Holiday Square, which he's redeveloped nicely. He's working on a big project on the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, which is exciting. And with all that he has on his plate, he still has time to give him his time and his resources. He serves on many boards. Currently, he's on the board of the Washburn Regents, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Go Topeka. He's been honored by numerous organizations, and he was recently, in the last couple of years, inducted to the Topeka County Business Hall of Fame. One of his most recent projects, and what he's here to talk about today, is the $100 million development of Wheatfield Village at 29th and Fairlawn. Huge project, bringing great things to Topeka. It's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Jim Klausman. Jim?
Thanks, Vince. Now that Vince is retired, he's got enough clothes for all of the high school, I think. So he cleans out his closet. I think we're in great shape. So. And the owner, before we took over, really kind of took it downhill even further. So we'll start there. And so in so we'll kind of do this as different acts. So Act 1, just to remind you, which way does this go? So I do here. We froze up already? Is it, did it start? There we go. So Act One, so the start. So those that don't remember what 29th and Fairlawn looked like, I thought I'd give you a little reminder. The place was a dump. I mean, it was really very, very badly done. The main person there was Herman's Meat and Deli, and Herman's is very popular, but the parking lot was just in horrible shape. The development had just gone really downhill. And you can tell by the looks of the sign that some of that stuff had been gone for many, many years. Again, I think at one time, I'm not sure if that was a Denny's or what that was, but there was some, what was it? It was Denny's. It was Denny's? Okay. There was a Denny's there, and the sign was, it had probably been gone for 20 years, and that sign was still there. So it was really, really poor shape. Many of you probably remember the rubble pile that was sitting on the property. A lot of people thought that was actually the demolition from the motel, which the previous owner demolished, which the bank was really not too happy about because that was a collateral. They didn't know that he was demolishing the motel. So but that's not the rubble from the motel. Actually, this is rubble from concrete barriers on the interstate that they're looking to place somewhere. And the previous owner, he was paid to dump it on his property, which is pretty bad. So we went ahead and it was a foreclosure auction that 2014. Again, we were familiar with the property. Again, like our first office, we knew that high traffic count, that it could be we thought a successful area. And so at foreclosure auction, the banks, there were several banks that were involved. It was a mess for a long, long time trying to get the banks even to work together to come to an idea that they would have an auction on it. So we participated. We came to the auction. We were actually going people there at the auction to bid on it. There was a minimum amount. We paid $2.4 million for the property. It was in very poor shape, but we knew the ground itself was worth $2.4 million. So we went ahead and bought that. And so that was in 2014. And so we bought the property. We had to figure out what are we going to do with this now? What's the plan? And we had all sorts of people actually calling us at that time thinking, well, this will be a great place for a car lot kind of deal. We could put a nice new dealership there. We had Walmart that called us about putting a neighborhood Walmart there. But we were really concerned about having something that I think Topeka could be proud of other than just another car lot or another grocery store. So we started working on this with a short design here in Topeka to come up with a plan. And this plan, it took probably a year to 18 months to put together. And we were going back and forth. There's not been a plan like this in Topeka before. There was a mixed use development that had a lot of diversity to the development and had a lot of density. So Act Two. It's a little difficult to see, but this is a plan. It's on 14 acres. And so we were trying to figure out how to make density on this property and make it look good. And originally we had a street, and you can't really see it on this very well, but we're hoping to come right off where the entryway to the interstate is and be able to come in from that direction. But KDOT would just not allow it. They just said, no, we're not going to do it. We met with the secretary of KDOT. Met with the federal highway people, and they said it doesn't meet our criteria. So we had to get rid of that entryway. And so we ended up with entryways right off of Fairlawn, a couple of entryways right off of there. We took it to the neighbors, we took it to the city, and a lot of people said this is just never going to work. There's just going to be too much traffic. That it's, that's a busy road right now. We commissioned a highway study. About $100,000 study to go through exactly, and it had little cars going up and down on the screen saying who's leaving here, who's coming here, and it did work. And so we presented that, and we were able to have the city sign on to the development, and so we started. So this was kind of the initial presentation from Short Design. It's changed somewhat, but this was still pretty close to what we ended up with doing. And as we go through, you'll see exactly what happened and how we ended up. So one of the second or third one we had was B&B Theaters. Excuse me, Topeka, pretty good sized city, only had one theater. I don't know if a number of you are my age or older. Remember when there were probably 6 or 7 theaters in Topeka at one time, going way back, and as many as 2 or 3 drive-in theaters. So we ended up with one theater in town, and when there's no competition, people just don't feel like they have to keep things up. And we felt like the theater in town then was not doing as good a job as we thought they should. And there's a little story behind B&B Theaters. Jolene and I have a condo on the plaza, and we're on the 4th floor of Townsend Place. And there's only 4 apartments on that floor, and 2 of the apartments were owned by Elmer and Amy Bills. And we didn't know that at the time, but someone said, hey, the Bills actually own theaters, and they're a fairly large theater company. And we were just over at the condo one time, and this elderly gentleman kind of knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm your neighbor, and I just wanted to introduce myself, and walked in. And so we met Elmer Bills, who was one of the B&Bs of B&B Theater. So Elmer's actually father started the company. So it's Bills and Bagby's. The 2 families got together, they married one of their sons and one of their daughters, and became B&B Theaters. And so we met Elmer, hadn't really thought about it. We're looking at what we're going to do with this area. One of them was a high-end grocery store, but that didn't work because there's too many grocery stores right around that area. We thought about actually a high-end Frontier Justice gun range or something, but we didn't think that would probably be the best idea either. We thought a theater would be a great idea. And so we were contacted by a broker about saying, hey, would you be interested in a theater? And we said, well, possibly. Who is it? And they said, well, it's B&B Theaters. And we said, well, we know Elmer. And so we met with Elmer in his actually apartment down at the plaza. And we put that deal together to form the new theater in town, B&B Theaters. So we actually own the theater, and they manage it for us. So the good part is it's a beautiful theater. The bad part, it opened 2 months before COVID, as well as a lot of the rest of the development too. So it opened fantastic. November and December, January, we're doing extremely well. February, started hearing about this thing that was kind of going around. Nobody paid much attention to it. And by March, we were closed. Everybody closed down. And so having a theater and not having patrons in it is kind of a problem. So this is kind of the development that you're seeing today. So on the left is Johnny's and the story behind that. And we've got some short people here right now. Greg is here from Short Design. So we appreciate that, Greg. And we were working on Johnny's for a long time. Johnny's is owned by about 6 or 7 individuals. And one of them, Rick Renfro from Lawrence, who was one of the original starters of Johnny's, wanted to come to Topeka. His partners did not want to come to Topeka. They didn't think Topeka would support a restaurant like Johnny's. And so we were halfway through the architectural design on Johnny's and not knowing if they were going to come or not. I mean, they hadn't signed the lease. They were giving us all sorts of grief about, well, we didn't think there's enough parking. We didn't think this, we didn't think that. And we were getting a little nervous that we were halfway through building a building for them specifically, and then we're going to sign a lease. But they finally did. So Rick Renfro stepped up and said, Rick, give him credit. He said, look, I believe in Topeka. I believe in what we're doing right here. And he told his other investors, his other partners, that I will take this on completely. I will do the deal. And I'll give you 6 months to say if you're in or out, if you want to come in or on the deal or not, which is probably pretty graceful of him to do that. So actually the day that they opened, the grand opening, the place was packed. All of the other owners, investors were there. and they all had the checks to him the next morning. So they determined, in fact, this Johnny's is probably the highest grossing Johnny's in their whole company right now. So again, when people tell you things won't work in Topeka, take that with a grain of salt. Things will work in Topeka. And I think what we've shown here is that if you put the right type of product together, it can work. Spin Pizza, Vince mentioned that. So we have some partners, Greg Schwerk and Brent Bowles, that we went ahead and bought the franchise to Spin Pizza probably about 4 or 5 years ago with the idea that we're going to build a Spin in Lawrence, and Topeka, and Wichita. So we were just a franchisee. The main company was based in Kansas City. They had a number of stores in Kansas City. But the further we got into it, the more we found out that the main company itself was not doing well. They started some restaurants in Dallas that were not well located, and that was draining a lot of their money. And so it's putting us at risk as a franchisee, knowing that the main company might not survive. So we ended up actually, myself and my partner Butch, we ended up buying Spin Pizza, and then Greg and Brent came in with a small piece of that. So we bought that whole company with the idea that we believe in Spin. We think it's a great restaurant. We think it's a great concept. We think it'll travel well. It's been very successful in Kansas City. We had to close some stores in Dallas because they were just draining the company. But we brought this to Topeka. The one in Lawrence is doing really well. Topeka's doing well, so we brought that here. Vince also mentioned that's the interior of Spin. PTs, probably about 10 years ago, we've known Jeff Taylor and Fred Paulson for a number of years. I was in the Dale Carnegie class, and they were actually teaching the class, and that's how I met them probably 35 years ago, something like that. So we've stayed in contact, and they were at a point where they were wanting to grow their business, and they had, a couple retail stores, a couple here in Topeka, one in Kansas City, and they wanted someone to help them grow. And so we came in as kind of a 50-50 partner with them, and kind of grew that business to where right now PTs is a small part of it. We bought a company in San Diego called Bird Rock, and that's where Jeff Taylor is now. And that Bird Rock brand is just growing very quickly. They have about 10 stores in San Diego and going up the coast there, so it's done really well. But we kind of assisted with that. The interior PTs. Again, I've told you the story about Johnny's, very, very successful. I think Ann said she was there last week, I think, spent some time there. I think we all spent maybe hopefully a little bit of time with Johnny's. So it's a great atmosphere. It's a great place to go watch a game. That's the interior of that. The B&B Theaters, this is a 9-screen B&B Theaters. It's one of their smaller movie theaters, but it ranks on the top 5 of all of their theaters across their company. They have about 500 screens. They're the 5th largest movie theater company in the country. So they've been very surprised somewhat, but they've been very enthusiastic about the success of B&B Theaters here, to the point where we partner with them now as a company. We purchased an old AMC theater in St. Louis and Freeport that we're developing with them. We bought another one in Omaha, and we're doing a project down in Texas with them. So a lot of this brings people together, and that's what we've always looked at doing, is to bring good people together. That's what we did with Jeff and Fred, and that's what we did with B&B Theaters, and that's what we also did with the next one. There's B&B, the outside. So Act 3, so this development was kind of a 3-phase development. We started with the restaurants. We put in the theater. I've not included the hotel, Spring Hill Suites. We built that as well. We opened that. Again, probably about 2 months into, or about a year into COVID. So again, not the best time to open a hotel. But we were able to make it through, and that hotel is doing extremely well now. I think they average about 90% occupancy, so it's doing extremely well. The last piece of Wheatfield, this is a live, play, work kind of development where you could live, where you could work, or where you could go to a Johnny's or Spin or get a cup of coffee. So the piece that was missing was the livability part. So we always had planned on doing some apartments. And Topeka has not had a new apartment complex in maybe 25 years or so, maybe 20, 25 years. We see all the stuff around us in Lawrence and Kansas City and some of the livability of the new apartment complexes that are much more friendly, that are really nice and have a lot of amenities that currently our apartments don't have. So we started on the last phase of Wheatfield Village, and that's Wheatfield Village Apartments. And if you've been by there lately, you see it's under construction right now. It's about 177 units. It's very dense. I mean, a lot of people say, how do you get all this in there? And what people saw was actually that concrete building in the back. And they're saying, what the heck is that? Nobody really knew. It's actually the parking garage for the apartments. So you'll be able to, and that parking garage is only available for the residents of the apartments. It's not part of the rest of the complex. And so as I go through, you'll see how it kind of works. Some people are saying, well, aren't they going to be looking at a garage out their windows? We said, no, why don't you wait and see what it looks like here. So this is actually on the interior courtyard of the apartments. The amenities are just incredible. Nice pool, kind of bar, outside bar area, fire pits. So this will be a very livable community right here. We expect ranging anywhere from young professionals on up to people that are retired that really don't want to maintain a home anymore, that say, look, I'm tired of mowing the grass, and we'll take care of that for you. Again, this is actually what it's going to look like, folks. I mean, this is really pretty indicative. Very, very high end, very nice. The apartments will be really beautiful. There we go. This is the front of the building right here, which kind of faces to the east, the entryway. I got another picture of that as we go along. So if you kind of imagine Spring Hill Suites would be just to the right of this building. So everybody saw the garage is a big concrete structure. Well, guess what? The garage kind of goes away. So it's a wrapped kind of apartment complex. So the apartments actually wrap around the parking garage. So again, Schwartz Design did all this for us. So the only part of the garage you really see are those 4 areas right there, and that's where you enter the garage. And there's apartments kind of surrounding the garage. Here's a better picture of it. The piece in the middle is where the garage is located. So you'll be able to drive in the garage, get off on whichever floor that you live on, just directly off, and just walk down to your apartment. So a lot of people want the convenience of just walking directly into your complex, and you also want the convenience of having covered parking so that they don't have to worry, like I did the other night, about hailstorms coming, and I had my car outside. So this is, we think this will be highly successful. Again, we don't know. This is all a risk for us in terms of all the things we've done here, because they had not been done in Topeka before. So this one's still kind of figure out how Act 3 ends in terms of the success of this. But we feel like Topeka will really embrace having a quality project like this. This is another view of the front of the building right here. Again, I think it's going to be an incredible addition for Topeka. We feel very strongly about Topeka, as Vince mentioned. We invest a lot all over Topeka. We've got downtown properties that we invest in. But our main business really is senior living. That's what we do. And Vince, we're up to 80 facilities now in 6 states. So we've been growing since then. But it can't be done by any one individual, as you well know. We have an incredible staff that works with us throughout our organization. We have about 4,000 employees. So there's a lot of people pulling together in the same direction, which really makes a difference. So that's Wheatfield Village. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Mike, I know Mike River, by the way. Mike Hall knew me when I was like 18 years old and working as a cook in Oskaloosa at the Country Kitchen. Yeah, so Mike, go ahead. Yeah, the theater's come back very strong. So COVID, as you all know, closed a lot of businesses down. Restaurants got hurt terribly. Movie theater is probably one of the worst. But the theaters, in December of last year, Spider-Man saved movie theaters. It was such an incredible response from people wanting to get out. Even with COVID still going around somewhat, people came out and they embraced that movie in particular. And it was probably one of the strongest months that the theaters have ever seen. And since then, the movie that started coming back, that's a problem too. It's during COVID, production on all the movies had been shut down. So there were no movies coming out. I think Top Gun comes out here at the end of this month, and that was put off for almost 2 years. So we've got a number of blockbusters that are just getting ready to hit. So people have come back and embracing it. And part of our problem is that we're building the apartments, so it gets really pretty tight in terms of parking there right now until the apartments are built. But they've done really well, and across the board, B&Bs come back very strongly. So I think there's a good future for movie theaters. I think what happened is a lot of the studios thought, well, people are just going to stay at home and stream now. Well, it's not the same. It's kind of everybody just stay home and eat a meal versus going to a restaurant. But people still want to get out. They want the socialization. They want to be able to try something different. And if you've seen a movie on a movie screen, it's just not the same as watching it at home on a TV. I was actually 2 days ago, I was at Liberty, Missouri for B&B, and they were showing us a preview of Top Gun. This is going to be phenomenal. That's just going to really be one of the top movies, I think, of the decade, maybe. And it's so impressive seeing this thing on a large screen and seeing these jets going back and forth at each other. So I think it's back. We'll see. Hopefully COVID is knock going away. It's not as bad as it was. Hey, Richard.
How many apartments?
About 177 apartments, and that's a range of, we have some studios, not too many studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. Nothing larger than a 2-bedroom, no, but they're spacious and they're very nice, very high-end finishes on the apartments. Again, I think it'll be just an incredible place if you're looking to sell your house and move in. We're happy to visit with you. Go ahead, Johnny.
First of all, I have a grandson who lives in Brooklyn, New York, and when he comes visits us, we have certain places we have to go. Cashmere popcorn and spin pizza.
Well,
Oh, he's not there.
Yeah.
And a zoo. Second of all, you were talking about developing Billy. You mentioned several challenges that occurred. How do you personally cope and manage when you have those types of ups and downs?
You know, we've had those all throughout business. I mean, I think every one of you in Rotary that's worked through challenges. That's just, I think, part of the equation. I think on each one, we try to learn something from it. We try to, I think in my younger days, I probably fight fights that I probably shouldn't have fought. So I learned from that maybe sometimes it's easier to get around, to work with people and try to negotiate rather than just say, this is my way and that's the only way. So that's been one of the things we've done. One of the challenges on Wheatfield was that this would not have happened without the city's help. The city worked with us on a tax increment financing in the Topeka district. This was a blighted area. I think you've seen before, just from the pictures, that whole corner was in deep disrepair and was blighted. And unless we did something to work with the city, we could not have put together a development like this. It would have been a car lot. We could have scraped it. It could have been all asphalt out there, and there'd be some Chevys and Fords and things like that. But in that, we didn't feel like would be beneficial to the city. So we really made that decision to work with the city, and they worked with us, and we were able to put together a great project, I think. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
What you done with the village, you got some new plans you want to share with us?
Well, there's always something going on for sure. So people ask about downtown. So we own a lot of property downtown, and they say, well, why haven't you started on that yet? I'm still working on this one. We only have a certain amount of runway to be able to do a lot of projects at one time. So downtown, we're probably wise because when COVID hit, it shut everything down, including downtown. Down, as Vince well knows, who was part of DTI, every office person went home. There's no office people downtown whatsoever for 2 years. Now we're starting to get those people back. And I think once you have the density, once you have people there, then that will bring on additional businesses. So we own the Kansan Towers, and we own the old AT&T building on Quincy that's right there. And so the plan is eventually, the problem with those 2 buildings is parking. So we'll build a parking garage and work with short design on that as well to really bring that back. And I think the AT&T building will probably be a combination of some office space on the first 2 or 3 floors, and then we'll do some really cool apartments above there. So that's kind of the plan for that.
So the city's talking about doing something in the parking lots downtown. How's that likely to potential or vice versa? What would you vote for that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Parking garages are expensive to build, they're expensive to maintain, and they're expensive to rent space. So right now, even the Kansan Towers, we have to rent space for, we have a number of apartments in Kansan Towers and we're always full, but they have to rent spaces for $60 to $70 a month just to have a space to put their car. So parking is a problem downtown. And I think they're pushing now to put meters back on Kansas Avenue. And it's not just us, but Cody Foster is a big investor in downtown Topeka. And when you put parking meters up, it just discourages people from coming there. And so we don't know that that's the answer. I don't really know exactly what the answer is, but if Topeka wants a strong, vibrant downtown, you can't put up impediments to have people come down there. And having a lot of parking tickets turns people off pretty quickly. So our hope is that they come into some conclusion. I'm not sure what the right one is. We've actually said we'd be interested in a couple of the garages if they're wanting to sell them. But I don't know if they're going to go that direction or not. Because we also own the US Bank building right there, and that there's a garage behind us right there. And even to find tenants in those buildings, it's very difficult to find the parking. So it's a critical problem for downtown. We're going to have to continue to look at it.
Further question. A lot of people, the virtual workplace is not going to go away. It's permanent.
Sure.
Your business strategies, are you looking at anything interesting that will allow virtual environment enhanced with the physical environment? That strategy for this?
Not yet. So that is a good question. And I think it's one that a lot of business owners have wrestled with. Even in our own office, we're always out on 3rd floor of Heritage Bank building. And we sent everybody home for a year. And, you know, it worked okay, but I think you lose a lot of the one-to-one experience with talking to people and dropping in and saying, hey, how's your family doing? What's going on? Zoom can only go so far. Sorry about that, folks that are on Zoom right now. It's okay, and in some aspects, it's probably better than having to drive long distances to get some places. But overall, I still think that ability to talk to people and to interact with people, have a cup of coffee in the office with them is important. The virtual is still very important. I think the Greater Topeka Partnership they've expanded on that by bringing in outside people and saying, hey, you're from California, you're from Texas, you can still live here in Topeka, have a great quality of life, and still do your job from outside. So there's going to be more of that. I'm not certain what the exact answer to it is. Personally, I like people and I'd like them to be around, but I understand a lot of people still want to work remotely. I understand that as well. Any other questions? Well, if not, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
So Jim, as a thank you for your program, we actually will have you sign a book, and we will have this go into one of our elementary schools. So very good. That is, he's right. I did mention that I spend a lot of time at Johnny's. Great food, great street tacos, really good beer. So it's a wonderful place. I have actually not gone to B&B yet, but my son has. And it was actually really good for COVID once you opened up because there's a lot more space. There's some social distancing naturally that happens. So that was actually kind of prescient. So thank you. So our next meeting, next Thursday, our speaker will be our own Karen Streeter, who will speak about SLI. So I'm very excited about that because I know she was going to speak previously and wasn't able to do that. So are there any other announcements from the floor? Steve, is there anything you want me to share?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. There is on your table an opportunity to continue considering volunteer opportunities. We are really hoping to get as many of our Rotarians helping to support our work. Yes, Greg?
Is that every weekend? That's great. I need to sign up multiple times?
No. Once you sign up, it gets passed on to the right committee and they should be reaching out to you. So very good question. Thank you. Greg asked if he had to sign up every week for people on Zoom. Okay, so if there are no other announcements, let's stand for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And our fifth one is, will it be fun and kind? Thank you very much. And we will see you next week. Thank you.